Hi everyone, welcome back. Okay, so we've kind of figured out the whole TIG welding thing. Good enough to glue it together and not blow big holes everywhere, so should be right. Now before we put the patch in, I've cleaned up inside, gotten all that sketchy factory black coat off that's not really any good, and we've given it a hit of primer with a band of weld-through, U-pole weld-through primer up the top. So the reinforcing bar is going to come down through there, so you're not going to be able to get in and paint it after it's welded on. So we've given the coat of primer, and then we're going to hit it with the black rust paint again across the whole thing, leaving the top strip about top inch or so where it's got the weld through primer, so that way at least it's kind of weatherproof for later on after it goes back on the guard. So we'll give this a stir up, and again we're just going to brush this on. It seems to brush on quite nice, so, or it did the other day anyway. So again, this isn't a POR 15 product or anything like that. It's just a local high chem product, just a black enamel, direct to metal, and anti-corrosion type paint. So it does seem to hold up well. I've used it before, and goes on well, sticks well, and does seem to protect quite well too. So a bit of a wipe off. So we're not going to want it on too heavy, just nice and even. So and like I said, we're going to stay away from that top section. Okay. So we're still learning with the TIG welder, and it is, I don't know, I find it quite hard to get a hold of because wait for old mate to go past on his air compressor. Alright, so yeah, I find it a little bit tricky because, I don't know, with my arthritis and stuff, trying to get your eye-hand coordination with both hands going compared to a MIG where it's like really just point and shoot. The MIG welding process is quite rough, I suppose, when you look at it. Even when it's done nicely, it still leaves a lot of product, and even an average job on the TIG is a lot quicker cleanup. Like the little test panel I did didn't require hardly any sanding at all, or grinding, sorry. You could actually grind it with just a coarse whiz pad on the actual little air die grinder, and it came up really well because it's not like we're metal finishing or anything silly like that. I don't have anywhere near that ability, so it's just a case of getting it good enough to put fill and primer over, and I personally think it came up pretty good. So depending on how this goes, when we get this one welded onto the XA fender, if I'm happy with that and happy with my progress with it, then while we're at it, we'll get in and get those two fenders for the front of Dad's XE done so that they can be painted and taken back over there and put into storage until they're ready to go on the car. Weather's a bit cold and this stuff's a bit thick, but if you don't work it too much, it does tend to go on and level out quite well when it dries. Once I've got this first coat on here, we'll clean the brush up and we'll show you how the one we put on that reinforcing bar, or sorry, reinforcing gusset on the XA fender went after it dried off. And it was 2 light coats, pretty much what we're going to do on here. And yeah, for where it is and what it is, it went quite well. Alright, that'll do for now. Seal this up. So while that's soaking, so when you look at it when it first brushes on, yes, it's streaky and it always seems to get little bubbles, like pinholes and stuff like that in it. I'm assuming it'd go on nicer with maybe a foam roller or something like that, but when you see it, when it dries off and flattens off, yeah, that one's still got a couple of dimples in it, but for where it is and what it's going to do, it gives a nice solid coat. So then once the fender's painted and it's all on the car and whatnot, you can go through with whatever you want afterwards. Like I was thinking on the XA, possibly going with like a tub liner, like rhino lining or something like that underneath the car for because it's going to be a driver and not really, I don't want to take it out in the rain and stuff like that if I don't have to, but I still want to be able to drive it anywhere and everywhere. And the rhino lining tends to have a really nice durable coat, and under the car we'll probably just get it tinted black. And I was even tossing up with once floor repairs and everything had done in the inside of the XA, getting it all cleaned up and stripped back, and we'll probably get the rhino liner tinted in the red pepper and do all the inner fenders, the inner floors, the inner sills, the boot in the inner quarters and everything like that as well. So I've seen it done on a couple of cars and it's actually really nice and durable. So, and it kind of waterproofs it all for us. So when it gets its inevitable leaks, if it does get caught in the rain or whatever, then I don't know, just give it that little bit more insurance not to fail or rust. Well, that's had half an hour or so to dry off, and we'll get in, give it one more really light coat just for where the thin spots are, and we'll clean up and call it a day. Doesn't really need much. It actually covers really well in one hit. There's just a couple little brush marks and stuff where it's a bit thin. Okay, we're done. Alright, so we're going to leave that sit off for the next couple of days, depending on what the weather does, because this last week was pretty wet the entire week, so we couldn't really get anything done after work. But if the weather holds off and we get through the end of month at work okay, through the week I'll try and get the time to tack that on, because next weekend we've got the caravan and camping show in the city, so we've got to go work the stand for that. So for now I'll leave it at that, and once that's all had a good chance to dry, we'll get in and tack weld it on there and see how we go. And if that all works out good, like I said, there's the 2 XA fenders there to do as well. So see you next time. Well, we've got home from work early enough to try and get something done on this before the weekend. Now, I've cleaned up the edge of the fender where it's going to meet the patch panel, and I've sanded the top edge of the patch panel on the outside where we're going to weld it. All that epoxy we put on the underside of it the other weekend is all dried. So the fit up's not bad. We're not going to really concentrate on anything through there at the moment because that's got to be reshaped. And this back edge right there needs to be brought up a little bit and squared off. It's still too much of a round curve. Main thing for tonight is we're going to try and tack everywhere it fits nice and get it so it sits flat. And then more than likely, if I have time, we're going to weld the entire seam up bar the two ends. Now it isn't early, so it's too late to start hammer and dollying, so we're not going to do that. But we'll at least get the patch welded on for this afternoon, and we'll leave dressing the two ends for another video afterwards when we can do it in the daytime and not upset any of the neighbours. But we've lined the panel up where this body line here flows into the factory one, and it does overhang this way a little bit too far, but that's, like I said, they had a fairly radius bend instead of a sharp one, so we'll tidy that up at the end, all going well. So the test panels that we welded with the welder the other day were made out of the same scrap offcuts of rust repair panel at Rare Spares sold us for another project. So the gauge was the same, and hopefully all the settings on the welder should be the same. So let's see if we can repeat what we did on Sunday and melt this thing together without butchering it. Radio, I'll put you up on the stand and we'll go from there. All settings are still the same. Now, we're going to try and put one where this body line comes down here. It actually fits quite well between the two. I'm going to try and tack it right on that edge because it is sitting where I want it. If I can prop that up just a little, it'd be even better. What have I got? Maybe I can just hold my hand under there and get it down. Or can I reposition this clamp? Much better. Awesome. Okay. All right, that's our first one. Let the pressure off of that. Now I want to try and go part way along the panel. Nice. Up this end isn't as nice. We can work with that. All right, I'll show you what I intend to do. Whether it works or not is yet to be seen. So, how am I going to hook this? All right. So from about here to that tack weld all fits reasonably nice, bar like a half a panel thickness up and down, which I can manipulate as we go. So from there out, I'm probably going to leave because I really want to hammer and dolly that little ridge there where I tried to get that shape to come back a little bit more. So I just want to dress up that panel before I weld it. But from there through to here, what I've done now is I'll let that cool so you can touch it, which is actually pretty well now. That one's still a little bit warm. And then what I'm going to do is come back and halve that, probably go there and then there, let that cool, and then go halfway between each of those again, let it cool, and keep going until I've got maybe a tack every, say, 10 mil. And then that way I can come back once it's cool and join tack to tack, miss a few, tack to tack, miss a few, and go all the way through. And hopefully we don't warp the panel. So I'll pop yours back up on the stand and we'll keep going. So one thing I don't think I mentioned the other day when I was talking about setting the TIG up, when I went and bought the gas lens kit and everything for it, I did go get a foot pedal. They never supply it with one. It's just got the trigger on the handle, and I thought that's all I needed. The foot pedal just makes it so much easier for a beginner to use. It's taken away that extra thing I'm trying to do with my hand, which has got not a lot of movement anymore anyway. So yeah, the foot pedal has just made tacking so much easier, and it really is worth getting one if you're going to start doing any of this. I didn't think I'd need it. I thought it was the amount that I was going to do. You'd be fine with the trigger on the handpiece, but no, this is way better. So we go in here. Now these tacks aren't really like heavy tacks. I'm not wanting to get full penetration on them. I just want it to hold the panel flush so that when I go to weld it, I can weld through and it's going to sit nice. Really want to hit that with a hammer, but I don't want to make too much noise. Okay, so I'll go halfway along again. Oh yeah, that's good. Cool. So we'll let that one cool down now again. and it's not really pulling in or sucking in anywhere. So if we grab yours down, it really is just like, to be honest, the panel wasn't the squarest to start with, but it's workable. This is the section up here where I said I want to re-dolly and get sorted out, but realistically I think we're going okay. This is a mess here, so we'll weld from there up, and then in here we're probably going to have to get some heat into here and try and dolly this into a bit of a shape to try and match that, because if you look from the other side, the curve they stamped in it is ridiculous. It doesn't match the factory panel at all, but we should be able to heat it and bring it down, and that'll get that up, and then we'll dress that in and weld it all in once we've done that. Alright, I'm going to let this cool down so it's not going to get too much heat in it, and we'll get back into it from there. Right, so let's get this thing welded up. It's all cooled down. The tacks are close enough together. I'm happy to run through. It has sucked in a little bit between that badge hole and this badge hole, which there's a third badge hole that's only half left because that's where the rust repair panel ran out, but that was already tweaked, because if you remember, the back section of this fender was missing pretty much there, up to there, and this was all twisted where the old mate that I got it off it, we just had it thrown in the backyard. I did get four of these for $50. You don't get XA parts for $50 anymore, so it was pretty much gonna be scrap metal. So to have to do a little bit of dolly work through there and probably a bit of a heat shrink once it's done, and then that, it won't take much mud to get that straight once it's all done, and I'm happy with that. This guard could end up being a usable guard. All right, so where's my pedal? I hate gloves. Okay, righty. That was my fault. That was a blow through. I am not the smoothest moving, and I sat in one spot for too long. So we'll go up here. And we'll go here. Ooh. Foot fell off the pedal. Do that again. Okay. We'll let that cool down and go back to the beginning and start again. Okay, take two. See if I can do it without blowing a hole this time. Yeah, where did I want to go? This one. And where will we go? This one. This one. And Nice. All right, so we'll let the heat come out of that, which doesn't honestly take that long. You can see the heat affected zone is only from really there to there, except for where I blew the hole and it's bigger, but again, that's a me problem. And everywhere on the back from about this badge hole that way, we can dress up with a hammer and dolly because the reinforcing comes about here. So we can dolly everything from there that way. I really think it's gonna, once we sand it back, we've got a lot less filler in there than if you were MIG welding it, and it will sand back rather than having to be ground back. Excuse me. So it should dolly up really nice, and there won't be a heck of a lot of filler in there by the time we're finished. This here, I'm probably going to have to run a cutoff wheel through there just to get that gap to open up a little bit more. It was butted a little bit tight, and then that will let me dolly that back down, and I just have to go steady with some filler rod and use filler rod to weld from there to there and hope I don't blow a hole. But all going well, I think I've kind of got the hang of it, so I might be able to do it. Wait a little bit longer. And like I was saying, realistically, this panel from about there down was trashed and did have a lot of waves in it. So by the time you get it in primer and, etch primer, and then some filler on, the filler won't be that high, and then high fill, it's gonna turn out hopefully pretty nice for one that I thought was gonna be a throwaway in a test. So, okay. That one. Yeah. Leave that a little bit longer this time to cool. And we've got the last couple there, 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 and those two. And it's pretty much done for the middle section. Alright, so we're on the last run now. Keep forgetting. Where was I? Okay, there. This is where that last badge hole was. I'll leave that. And we'll see if we can plug this hole. Nope. No, first one, stuck it. Damn it. Yeah, okay. Well, that's an ugly globby mess, isn't it? Well, lucky we're good with a finder, huh? A little bit there. Get another bit of wire. Right, so if we ignore the big booger glob right there, where, again, that's a me fault. I was coming along and I totally forgot about the third badge hole that was down there. There was only a tiny bit of the badge hole there, but the gap was bigger than I'm capable of filling at the moment. And as I ran to it, by the time I realised and I triggered off the pedal, it already blew a dirty big hole. So we've chased that, filled it. Lucky I'm good with the grinder. So we'll dress all of this up on the weekend. Well, not this weekend actually, I forgot I'm working in the city. So we've got the 4x4 and caravanning show in the city. So the next session we're going to get into, we're going to dress it up with the sander and the grinder. And like I said, we'll do a fly cut through there to release the pressure off that, hammer and dolly that down to dress that out. And we'll weld from the corner to there, heat through here down to about here and try and put more of that shape in and fade it out. And then get that to match and weld that through up to the peak and dress that over the edge and get that welded. We did have a couple of G-clamps down here while we were welding it on, and that's let the curve there come down a bit better as well. So once that's all done, then we'll get in and do those nicks where I said we had to and get that pulled down and plug weld maybe corner there, there and there to hold that all on. And then it's ready to move on to cutting the XA fender flute in up here. But before we get into that, there's the two XE fenders that we need to do for Dad, so we can get them over there and ready to go back on his car. So after that, I'm pretty happy to go and try and TIG weld them on. So yeah, I will flip this over just so we can see how we went on the inside. And pop you guys off here. Again, we've got a very small heat affected zone and we've managed to get full penetration. Ignore that, that's where that hole blew through, but we've managed to get full penetration the whole way along. So I'll give inside of there a light dressing with the sander as well, so that way we can hammer and dolly from pretty much here all the way back through and out. Then we'll get that all dressed up and planish it, and in here as well where the original dents were, we'll planish all that and get it all nice and straight. And then back up in here, that's where we've got to get that to tip back out a little bit, and we'll plug weld along there. And then in here we've just got to dress it in to meet a little bit, and then over here gets dressed in. This is looking like it's too short as well, probably should have been out to here, because by the time we dress that and fold that over to match like this, the factory actually had a row of spot welds going up along there. Oop. And by the time that dresses in, those spot welds I reckon are going to be right on the edge of that by the time it dresses in and meets. So we may still have to run an extension on there by the time we dress it in. But all in all, I'm going to call that a win. So again, thanks for watching. If you liked what we did, give us a like and a subscribe, share it around, and we'll see you next time. Night, guys. Bye.